Welcome to the Fox 54 Week in Review. I'm Kenesha Dees. It's the only place in North Alabama to get the week's local headlines condensed into one program. This week's big story: community members protested an HOA's plan to euthanize hundreds of geese. The result? The geese will live. Here's what happened. New developments tonight on a story you saw first on Fox 54. A second day of protests against the Homeowners Association weighing plans to exterminate local Canada geese. The Edgewater Homeowners Association says they've worked for the last 6 years with non-lethal methods to manage the growing population, but nothing has worked. Many residents and community members have spoken out about the potential extermination plans, including dozens of protesters yesterday. A small group came back this afternoon. Fox 54's Gabe Glassman takes us there.
Residents and other locals coming out again Monday afternoon to the Edgewater community in Madison County for speaking out against potential plans to exterminate local geese. In your 3 years of living here, have you ever seen a problem with the geese here?
Not at all. I frequently walk around Lady Ann Lake. I have been in the community. I've been with the community. I have never seen an issue, never had a personal issue. I've never met anyone that's had an issue.
The Edgewater community is weighing plans to cull the flock, which congregate on and around Lady Ann Lake. The HOA cites negative effects on the neighborhood, including impacts on health and safety. Some residents continue their call to save these birds, hoping nothing happens before a non-lethal resolution can be reached.
I think there has to be a better option than just killing them.
I think they're definitely seeing the outreach of the community. I think they're definitely seeing the numbers of people that are caring online, in person. We had many people out here yesterday. But I sure hope they see and hear our voices and consider either speaking with us or consider other alternatives.
When you start talking about gassing wildlife for very little reason, poop on sidewalks or something, it just seems that there has to be a better option that tends to get people upset.
The USDA tells Fox 54, as of Monday, no cooperative service agreement between the two parties to conduct any operations is in place. The Edgewater HOA had previously said they've consulted with the USDA after utilizing non-lethal attempts to reduce the population of the geese for years. Ryan Robertson, the owner of Vanguard Crawl Space and Waterproofing, says he's a hunter and takes a deep interest in wildlife. He says he's had conversations with the Edgewater HOA and tells us they've continued to hear out alternative options.
They're going to hear us out, which is the most important part. We're giving the HOA every resource they need to do this the right way, and we're hoping they can do that.
Robertson says those resources include getting in touch with a company called Flyaway Geese, who specializes in humane and effective migratory bird solutions. In Madison County, Gabe Glassman, Fox 54 News.
The USDA notes in their statement the HOA doesn't need to apply for a depredation permit with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. The cooperative service agreement would allow the USDA to conduct damage management operations. Find more from the USDA statement on fox54.com. Hundreds of geese now breathing a sigh of relief. It's where we start. I'm Kenesha Dees. The latest on a story we brought you first on Fox 54. A homeowners association in Madison reversing its decision to gas the geese in the neighborhood after hundreds of residents and animal rights activists took to social media and the sidewalks of the subdivision in protest. The Edgewater subdivision is now looking for different ways to combat the goose problem around Lady Ann Lake. Fox 54's Caleb Aguayo shows us what residents have to say about this victory.
After hundreds of emails, phone calls, verbal communication, and even protests, the Edgewater Homeowners Association is going against its previous decision to euthanize the geese along Lady Ann Lake. That means the HOA board won't be working with USDA wildlife professionals to help cull the flock. But it's going to take some work for everyone to manage the geese more effectively. The HOA board says many of the humane alternatives to killing the geese involve ongoing volunteer efforts in common areas like watching the geese and cleaning up after them. Since dozens of people protested along the lake bank on Saturday, the board says they've seen an increase in residents stepping up to help out.
They did reconsider it. They allowed people to come forward and voice their opinions, and they've made a different decision based on some volunteer efforts. And I think that's great. I think that's how it should work. In a community this size, you got to have people step up and do things that need to be done. That entire lake is maintained by 2 or 3 people, and it doesn't exist without thoughtful consideration on improvements and maintenance of it.
That's why the HOA board formed a subcommittee for wildlife and environmental impact made up of nearby residents who will work together to find solutions, research them, talk them over, and present them to the board for approval.
When they come south, we get the larger flocks. So I think you got to start there. but it's probably relying on volunteers unless it's sort of a minor problem that you can get a couple people out there. We probably are going to have to find a longer-term solution. Volunteers can be a tough long-term solution to manage. The real key is to try and find as many creative solutions as you can. Maybe some of the cost is doing some additional cleanup and having some folks there and asking the community if that's something we'd be willing to pay for.
The Edgewater HOA is now asking residents to come forward as volunteers and members of the new subcommittee to help out. In Madison, I'm Caleb Aguayo, Fox 54 News.
The Edgewater HOA says they'll be working with the new subcommittee for a full year, discussing and researching potential solutions to the goose problem before bringing them to the board for consideration. On Tuesday, Alabamians went to the polls for the 2026 primary runoff elections. We've got a look at the outcome of 3 of those races, including one bringing a change of leadership to a local school district. Welcome back. The results are now in for one of Marshall County's most watched races tonight. Voters choosing who they want to lead the county school system after a hard-fought superintendent runoff. Fox 54's Valentina Chalala joins us live from outside the Marshall County Board of Education. Valentina, this race brought out strong opinions throughout the campaign. What was driving voters to the polls?
Yeah, Kanisha, all day long, voters walked into polling locations with one big question on their minds. Who should be trusted to lead Marshall County schools? Voters here were choosing between current leadership under Cindy Wigley or a different direction under Clay Weber, with both candidates offering different visions for the school system. Tonight, voters elected Dr. Clay Weber as Marshall County's next school superintendent. The race followed a close primary race where Weber led the field, but no candidate won a majority, sending the contest into a runoff. Wigley has led the system since 2015, while Weber ran on a message of change, communication, and transparency.
I have read that the current superintendent is very capable, so I would vote for her and probably did last time.
The campaign also included a high-profile dispute involving the handling of an investigation into an alleged inappropriate relationship between an Asbury coach and a student. There were concerns about when Weber reported the situation through the school system, but he pushed back, saying all required protocols were followed. But beyond the campaign debates and controversy, many voters told me they were focused on something much simpler, making sure their voices were heard at the ballot box.
For a woman, it's our God-given right. I mean, the women before us, what they had to go through in order to vote. I mean, I do it every year. I mean, I can't believe people who don't do it.
Many of the voters also gave their opinions on what they look for in a candidate.
I look for people who can be trustworthy.
Integrity.
Honesty.
Among those casting ballots today was former Gunnersville mayoral candidate Jeff McLaughlin, who said he was hoping to see stronger voter participation.
It's important for everybody to vote. I was just in there, and I was actually glad more than 10% have voted, because I estimated 10% or less. It was about 14%. And I'm glad it was 14 compared to averages for runoff.
Now the campaigning stops and the focus shifts to what comes next as Weber prepares to take on the responsibility of leading thousands of students, teachers, and staff across Marshall County schools. Whether voters were looking for experience or change, tonight they made their choice. Now many are saying they're hoping for unity and a focus on students moving forward. Live in Marshall County, I'm Valentina Chalala, Fox 54 News.
Thank you, Valentina. And with the superintendent race now decided, we'll continue following the community's reaction and what this means for Marshall County schools moving forward. One of the races closely watched here in North Alabama, Democratic voters in parts of Madison and Limestone counties deciding on their nominee for State Senate District 2. The two options, Navy veteran Rudolph Drake and academic advisor Alex House. With Rudolph Drake, you see here, taking the lead by 53% of the vote. Very close, but he takes the lead. Here's what they both had to say earlier today before polls closed.
People talk about affordability, but how far do they really go into talking about affordability? I have those answers. And so help is on the way. That's what I have for all the communities in Northern Alabama. I want to reach out and I want to make Northern Alabama the best place to come and visit and live in the state.
Meanwhile, his opponent, academic advisor Alex House, said working class Alabamians need historic policy changes to maintain a decent standard of living.
We need to raise the minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. was not a sufficient wage in 2009, and it's a starvation wage in 2026. I'd like to see any of the politicians in Montgomery try to survive off of $7.25 an hour for a month.
Drake will now advance to the November ballot to face Republican John Roberts. Two candidates are fighting for Tommy Tuberville's open seat. Those results tonight siding with Barry Moore, who scored President Trump's nomination, his endorsement, hosting a telephone rally with the president just last week. Barry Moore accepting the Republican nomination tonight. Fox 54's Caleb Aguayo is out in Hoover for the latest on that watch party for Jared Hudson. Caleb, what can you tell us about the race for the U.S. Senate seat?
Yeah, Kenesha, it started at 7 p.m. with the votes rolling in, but it became clearer throughout the evening that Jared Hudson was falling behind.
We look forward to working with Senator Britt and Governor Tuberville because the greatest days of Alabama are ahead of us, and the relationships we have with the president in the White House. And when I call him, he takes my calls, and we can work together with the senators, the delegation, and certainly the President of the United States to make sure that Alabama has an opportunity to bring the jobs back here that we need.
But over in Hoover, hundreds of people went to Brock's Gap Brewing Company to see the results of the race as they came in tonight. And the support for Jared Hudson started early, with thousands of people across the state casting their ballot, many of them saying this race is all about bringing new blood into state politics.
I think what he has to say is important. I know that he has served our country. I know that he's a family man and a Christian man. And those things are important. But I also think it's important to bring in new blood. And he's been very spot on as far as what he says he believes in.
But family, friends, and supporters of Jared Hudson saw him leaving the race with 40% of the vote, compared with Barry Moore's 60%.
The effort he put in, proud of that, and proud of the message he gave to the people of Alabama.
That's the way the elections work. That's the free, U.S. that we live in. That's the way it's supposed to work. And proud to be a part of such a great free society where we're able to elect our leaders. So that would be, as far as the law side, I don't really want to think about that much.
He's a big boy. He's gone through. He's a SEAL, and so he knows what to expect. Knew what to expect walking into it, and so. We're okay with that, and we've prayed for him. We've prayed with him. We've continued to pray about this, and so we've left it in the hands of the Lord.
With these unofficial results, Barry Moore will head to the general election in November, where he'll face off against the Democratic candidate Everett West. Live in Hoover, I'm Caleb Aguayo, Fox 54 News.
More growth headed to the Tennessee Valley is drawing mixed reactions from residents, from a proposed Bitcoin mine in Morgan County to a sportsplex in Decatur and Limestone counties. We've got to look at what could be coming to North Alabama. Dozens of Morgan County residents are pushing back against a development they say would ruin their property values and solitude in the surrounding area. And they're taking it further than social media. They're seeking help from the state legislature to stop the construction of a Bitcoin mining facility. If completed, it would be built here, right next to the unincorporated neighborhood along Union Road in Morgan County. Fox 54's Caleb Aguayo shows us why residents are demanding change in rural county zoning.
Imagine waking up and looking out over your back porch to find that, instead of the grassy fields you're used to, there's now a massive, noisy work site where your backyard once was. That's what dozens of residents along Union Road in Morgan County fear will happen. And the county commission says, even though it's their jurisdiction, they can't zone land to keep the construction from taking shape.
The county wanted to zone. The county has no home rule. We don't have authority. The legislators would have to give us authority to set up zoning. But, people in the county don't want zoning. I mean, even none of these residents that I've talked to about the data center that live on the road don't want zoning. They don't want anybody telling them what to do with their property. They just don't want a data center right in the middle of them. And that's very understandable.
Several residents tell me they moved out to the county for some peace and quiet, but they say a 10-acre facility built right where I'm standing would destroy that solitude by creating noise, light pollution, power lines, and traffic congestion.
I think that these companies are seeking out these locations because there's infrastructure here available, there's cheap land here available, and no regulation. So it's almost predatory to me.
Jenkins says the community is looking into any option available, but their next action is to get a temporary injunction in a lawsuit to stop the construction while state legislators make some policy changes for county residents across Alabama.
It really would be better if our state government would deal with this issue and pass some guidelines and ordinances that protects the citizens of the state of Alabama in these rural areas and, in our neighborhoods. That's what we're seeking as a community is to be protected by our state, local, and county officials.
But until that happens, the residents along Union Road say they're looking for all the help they can get. In Morgan County, I'm Caleb Aguayo, Fox 54 News.
The name of the company and the construction timeline still unclear, but residents say they fear the facility might come before they can do anything about it. Residents in Decatur are reacting to a big development that could soon change a major stretch of highway in North Alabama. Plans are now in the works for a new mixed-use project centered around a regional sports complex that's designed to bring in visitors from across the southeast. The project, called the Crossroads of the Tennessee Valley, is being planned by Synergy Sports, Crossroads LLC, the city of Decatur, and Limestone County. And it would be built on about 125 acres just west of the I-65 Huntsville-Decatur interchange. Fox 54's Valentina Chalala spoke with residents about their thoughts regarding the potential project.
While the plans are still only on paper, developers say the vision goes far beyond sports, with plans for shopping, hotels, and places to keep people coming back. The project would include a regional sports complex with baseball and softball diamonds, fields for other sports, plus retail, hotels, and family entertainment. Some residents say they're excited about what more growth could bring to the area.
I think more stores in Decatur would be very nice.
The more people we get into town, the better. Any type of new hotels that we can get, any type of new people coming in town, just more money, more economy, more things working, and that sounds great that we're doing stuff. I prefer to hear that we're doing more stuff than not doing more stuff.
But while some see opportunity, others say growth of this size also brings questions about traffic and how the area could change.
Decatur's already kind of crowded up, and we're always getting the traffic coming through Huntsville for people coming back home. So I feel like it'll be good for everything in the businesses around here, but I don't think it'll be good for the traffic.
Synergy Sports President and CEO Jason Boudry says traffic impacts are already being studied and that development would happen in phases. He says developers would also work with AlDOT on road improvements, traffic lights, and possible road widening as the project grows. The city of Decatur also voicing support, saying in a statement the project could, quote, support local businesses, create new opportunities for families, and bring additional activity to the area. According to Synergy Sports, the project could create direct jobs while also supporting opportunities in retail, hospitality, commercial development, and other industries. In Decatur, I'm Valentina Chalala, Fox 54 News.
The project is still in the planning stages and the property would need to be annexed into Decatur city limits before moving forward. The Port of Mobile and the Alabama Port Authority are looking to make some sweeping changes across the state, which could have some significant financial impacts for millions, including right here in North Alabama. Those changes include more investment into shipping imports and exports across Alabama, developments to the seaport to reduce shipping congestion, and new railways to deliver goods. The Port Authority's director, Doug Otto, describes what they're planning for North Alabama as part of that expansion.
Port of Mobile is the gateway, right? That's where the goods come and go. We're connected internationally through the gateway, but then how do we get those logistics pipelines to other parts of the state? And so we're building a intermodal rail facility in Montgomery right now, and we're looking at a second intermodal facility in North Alabama to serve this area as well.
The idea is still in the early stages of consideration, so it's not yet clear when or where the rail line could go. A growing debate over short-term rentals is putting some Madison neighborhoods in the spotlight. Residents say they're worried about how expanding short-term rentals could change their communities, while the city council prepares to take up the issue in a vote that could impact who can operate them moving forward. A petition opposing investor-owned short-term rentals now has more than 350 signatures, with supporters urging city leaders to put more restrictions in place before Monday's vote. Fox 54's Valentina Chalala spoke with residents about what's at stake.
It's a question that's sparking big emotion. Who should live next door? Residents say short-term rentals could change the makeup of their neighborhoods, and they want their voices to be heard before the city puts it up to a vote. Petition organizer Eric Koenig says he started the effort after growing concerned about what he believes could happen if investor-owned short-term rentals expand into residential neighborhoods.
When you see homes on your block that is supposed to be for families, and when you see those start to be bought up by people with, 3 and 4 and 5 homes and turned into full-time hotels, essentially, it's I guess frustrating to see that.
Some also worry about the impact on kids who play outside in their neighborhoods.
I don't want party going on. I don't want extra traffic. We've got kids up and down the street that don't need to go by short-term rentals. So we're just trying to maintain the quality of life in this nice little city of Madison.
Koenig also points to a city survey sent out earlier this year that he says showed about 75% of respondents oppose short-term rentals, though he says city leaders later questioned the size of the sample. Petition supporters also point to a Huntsville-style approach that would limit short-term rentals in certain residential areas.
We're not opposed to short-term rentals, but there's a place for them, and it is absolutely not in a single-family residential neighborhood.
Petition supporters say they're now focused on the upcoming council vote. With one council member abstaining from the vote, they say they need 3 council members to vote no to block the current proposal. In Madison, I'm Valentina Chalala, Fox 54 News.
Madison City Council is set to meet Monday, where many residents say they plan to address leaders directly before a vote is taken. Google announcing a major investment in Jackson County this morning. The tech giant announced it will invest $1.5 billion to expand its data center in Jackson County over the next 2 years. The data center is in Bridgeport, on the site of the TVA's former Widows Creek coal plant. And according to Google officials, the investment will help increase infrastructure capacity, support community education programs, and create thousands of construction and clean energy jobs across the region. Google opened the data center back in 2018 as a driver for internet traffic, part of a network that keeps the Google search engine and company products such as Gmail and YouTube up and running. Fox 54 spoke with Jackson County leaders about what today's investment means to the community.
Everywhere I go, I say, we got Google in our backyard. I mean, that means a lot, because Chattanooga ain't got it. I mean, Scottsboro ain't got it. Bridgeport's got it.
Sitting in a park that was built in part with grants from Google and local contractors, Bridgeport Mayor David Bubba Hughes spoke with us, reflecting on Google's plan to invest more than $1 billion into the nearby Jackson County campus. For Mayor Hughes, Google is helping push business into the riverside town.
All our business is doing good. I mean, our Family Dollar, Dollar General, our grocery stores, our Hardee's, our restaurants. I mean, everything's just picked up since all these construction workers come into town.
Mountain Lakes Chamber of Commerce CEO Rick Roden tells us that for every job Google brings, more are right behind.
For every job that Google has, and right now there's anywhere, every day, there's 250, 300 people on site that work at Google or work for Google or support Google, 250 to 300. For every job that Google has supports 9 other jobs in the community. Because all of our local businesses have opportunities. They may not work for Google, but they can work at Google. And during construction phase, you're looking at, first time was close to 2,000 construction workers for the next 2 years.
With those jobs and the support Google has invested into Jackson County, Roden says the county is just starting to see growth.
All of a sudden, it opens doors to where other companies look at us and say, you know something? If they're there, we ought to look at Jackson County. So we're getting more opportunities just because of Google, and all of a sudden we can kind of almost pick and choose the best ones because the growth is coming. There's no question the growth is coming. We're getting more housetops, we're getting more business. Retail growth the last 2 years have been phenomenal. What we've landed in the last 2 years, it's only in the beginning.
Google also announced a $550,000 donation to the Jackson County School District. This funding will provide STEM education kits for students in grades 4 through 8. State Senate Majority Leader Steve Livingston said Google's continued investment will have a lasting positive impact on families, students, and businesses across Jackson County. And let's take a look at what our Fox 54 News team verified for you this week. From wrecks involving police cars to where data centers can be built, we found answers to your questions. A car accident on its own is stressful enough, but what if the other vehicle is an active police car? Who pays for the damages? We verify. A fender bender is never fun, but it gets even more complicated when the other car is a police cruiser. Maybe the lights were flashing, but you didn't hear them. And now you're left wondering if you're stuck paying for damage that might not be your fault. So if you get into a wreck with an active police car, who's held liable? Let's verify. Our source tonight is the Code of Alabama, specifically Section 32-5A-7, and Alabama's Back the Blue Act. Here's what we found. Under Alabama law, officers responding to a call or chasing a suspect do get some special privileges. They can speed, run a red light, or even blow through a stop sign. But those privileges come with conditions. First, they only kick in when both lights and sirens are actually on at the same time. If an officer was running only lights without a siren, that could shift some or all of the liability toward them. But if both were on and you failed to yield, you're likely at fault. Second, even with lights and sirens on, the law doesn't give officers a free pass. The same statute that grants those privileges says they do not excuse an officer from driving with due regard for everyone else's safety. Now, what the officer was actually doing at the moment of impact determines how hard your case will be. If the officer was on routine patrol or simply driving to another location, your claim looks more like a standard car accident case. You need to show that the officer failed to drive with reasonable care and that the failure led to your injuries. But if that officer was actively responding to an emergency or in the middle of a pursuit, the bar is much higher. Under the new Back the Blue Act, which took effect in October last year, officers are shielded from lawsuits over things like pursuit wrecks, as long as they're acting within their job duties. But that protection wouldn't apply if a court determines they acted recklessly or violated someone's constitutional rights. So we can verify that there's actually no one-size-fits-all answer. It needs context. It comes down to what the officer was actually doing at the time of the crash, whether their lights and sirens were on, if they were responding to an emergency or in a pursuit, or if they were driving recklessly. If you have something you want us to verify, text us at 256-382-2692. For many people, moving outside city limits means quiet streets, more space, and a little more peace and privacy. But what happens when that peace and quiet is interrupted, not by neighbors or traffic, but by a massive data center popping up right next door? Can a company build a data center wherever they want if it's on unincorporated land? Let's verify. Our source tonight is Alabama Code Title 11. Here's what we found. In Alabama, cities and counties are not treated the same when it comes to zoning. Cities generally have broader authority to control what gets built within their limits because state law gives them more power over land use and development. Counties, on the other hand, are in a much tighter box. Under Alabama Code, counties can only do what the state legislature specifically allows them to do, and that includes zoning. So the answer depends on if the county has authority over zoning. If the county does have that power, a data center developer has to fit their project into an approved zone or go through a formal rezoning process. That process typically involves public hearings, recommendations from a planning board, and a final decision by county leaders who can approve or deny the request. If the county does not have authority over zoning, it gets more complicated. Without zoning, a county has almost no land use tool to block a data center in unincorporated areas. A developer would still need state environmental permits and utility hookups, but there's no zoning limitations, and that puts some residents in a difficult spot. The only way to get a say in what gets built next door is to have zoning, and zoning cuts both ways. It means the county gets a say in what developers build, but also in what residents can build on their own land. So we can verify whether a data center can build in unincorporated county land depends on whether your county has zoning authority. In Morgan County's case, they don't, so there's very little standing in the way. Election day has a way of bringing out the patriotic spirit, and a lot of voters want to share that moment, like with photos of their ballots. In some states, that's against the law. But what about here in Alabama? We verify. Election day selfies have become a social media tradition. Every election season, timelines are filled with I voted posts and sometimes photos with ballots. But before you decide to snap a photo at the polls, you may want to know if that could get you in some trouble. Can you legally take a selfie with your ballot in Alabama? Let's verify. Our sources are the Alabama Code Section 17950.1, the Alabama Secretary of State's website, and the Alabama League of Municipalities. Here's what we found. According to the Secretary of State's website, every voter has the right to cast a ballot in secrecy and in private. State officials say nobody should feel intimidated by cameras when exercising their right to vote. And the law protects that. Alabama law prohibits you from photographing, videoing, or revealing what's on another person's ballot. If you do, that's a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail and a fine of up to $6,000. But when it comes to your own ballot, you're in the clear. The law says voters can take a photo of or with their ballot as long as they're not capturing another voter's ballot and they don't disrupt the voting process. That's a relatively recent change in Alabama. According to the Alabama League of Municipalities, an Attorney General opinion back in 2000 stated that no one could photograph or videotape within 30 feet of a polling place. But that guidance shifted in 2019 when state lawmakers passed a bill that moved through both chambers and was signed into law. So we can verify that, yes, you can take a selfie with your ballot in Alabama and post it on social media. Just keep it to your ballot and don't cause a scene doing it. If you have something you want us to verify, text us at 256-382-2692. We'll wrap up with a little game. Huntsville is getting its own version of Monopoly. See how you can submit your ideas on what should be included on the iconic board. Monopoly just got a lot more interesting for Huntsville residents. The Rocket City is getting its very own spot on the popular board game. Monopoly, in conjunction with toy maker Top Trumps USA, selected Huntsville as the next official city for the iconic board game. The Huntsville Edition board will feature Rocket City favorites, including landmarks and local businesses, and they want your help designing it.
We want to know it all, including, I'd say, little Easter eggs for locals. So not only will visually the board represent Huntsville, but we're also going to completely customize the community chest and chance cards as well. You know, people say there's bad traffic on 565, so maybe we should have a card where the player who picks up that card is penalized and has to go back 3 spaces because they're stuck in 5 o'clock traffic on 565.
Hey, you have 5 weeks to submit your favorite landmarks, businesses, and parks to be featured on the game board. If you can find submission information on FOX54.com. Thank you for watching Fox 54's Week in Review. Count on Fox 54 Plus to bring you more great programming with in-depth local specials, Locked On Sports, true crime, cooking shows, wellness experts, and continuing weather coverage. For everyone at Fox 54 News, I'm Kenesha Dees. Have a great weekend.